Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going to dive into Morgan Housel's fantastic book, The Art of Spending Money. We're going to unpack the surprising psychology behind why we spend money the way we do and what it actually takes to be happy. So let's just kick things off with a big one, right? The question that's at the very heart of all our financial decisions. And according to Housel, the answer is yeah, it can. But, and this is a huge but, it is way more complicated than you think. The path to that happiness is almost never a straight line. It's more like a winding road full of these psychological traps that most of us don't even see coming. And a big reason for that is we often get the diagnosis wrong. We aim for a target that we think will make us happy, but it's the wrong one entirely. There's this fascinating story about a LASIK patient that really drives us home. So you see the problem here, right? She thought her glasses were the issue, so she spent money to fix it. But the real problems, feeling loved by her husband and respected by her colleagues, ran so much deeper. And this is a trap we fall into all the time with money. We think buying something is going to solve a problem it was never, ever designed to fix. And that brings us to a really crucial point. When we spend money on those big ticket items, the fancy car, the big house, are we actually chasing the things themselves? Or is it something else entirely? You know, this isn't some new modern problem. Way back in 1759, the economist Adam Smith totally nailed it. He saw that we're often way more interested in the attention and admiration that money brings, the vanity of it all, than the actual comfort or pleasure the stuff gives us. So how do we get clear on what actually matters to us? Housel suggests this simple but, man, is it a powerful exercise. Just take a second and actually think about it. What virtues, what qualities, what relationships would you want people to remember you for? What you'll probably find is this huge difference. We spend so much of our lives chasing what you could call resume virtues, the things that look good on paper. But what truly defines a life well lived are the eulogy virtues, the things that are all about your character and your connection to others. And you know who gets this better than anyone? Warren Buffett, one of the richest people in history. He puts it perfectly. He says the ultimate test of your life is how many of the people you want to have love you actually do. And that, you just can't buy. No way. You have to earn it. Okay, so if piling up more stuff isn't the answer, then what is? What's the actual formula for finding financial happiness? Well, let's take a look at the contentment equation. The real key is contentment. And it's not about how much you have in absolute terms. It's all about managing the gap between your circumstances and your expectations. True psychological wealth is found when that gap is as small as you can possibly make it. Housel tells this beautiful story contrasting these billionaires who always seem to be chasing the next thing with his low-income grandmother-in-law. Now, she had very little money, but here's the thing. She wanted even less. So that gap was tiny. He says she was one of the happiest people he knew. She had absolutely mastered the contentment equation. So why is that gap so hard to manage? Well, it's because of something called the hedonic treadmill. It's basically how our brains are wired. We value things like crazy before we get them. I mean, we obsess over them. But once they're ours, that feeling just fades, and we're right back to looking for the next hit of happiness. So how do you fight this? How do you get off that treadmill? This choice between chasing more and just being content, it's a battle between two different ways of measuring success. And it is perfectly illustrated by the incredible true story of two sailors in a legendary and ultimately tragic race. So picture this. It's 1968, and the first ever solo nonstop race around the entire world is announced. Two of the men who entered, Donald Crowhurst and Bernard Moitessier, could not have been more different. And their approaches reveal two vastly different ways of living your life. Crowhurst was all about his outer scorecard, totally obsessed with what people thought. He was a failing businessman, a novice sailor, and he desperately craved the fame the race would bring. But when his boat started to fail, he started faking his coordinates, inventing this heroic voyage while he was secretly just drifting in the Atlantic. He got trapped by his own lie, and his need for public admiration ultimately consumed him. Now, in stark contrast, you have Moitessier. He was an expert sailor, and he was on track to win the whole thing. But the thought of fame, the sponsors, the media interviews, he said it felt like a snake pit. So he did the unthinkable. He quit the race he was winning. He sent this message, choosing to follow his inner scorecard and just keep sailing for the sheer joy of it. And this brings us right back to Warren Buffett's idea, are you living by an inner scorecard or an outer scorecard? Are you living for the applause of others or for your own sense of purpose and contentment? Crowhurst's story is a tragic warning about the dangers of the outer scorecard, while Moitessier shows the liberating power of the inner one. Okay, so how do we put this into practice in our own lives? The final lesson is really about learning to recognize and appreciate the richness that is already all around us, something we often become completely blind to. And there's this incredible story of Michael May. He was blind his whole life, and then, through surgery, he regained his sight at 46. You know what the first thing that totally blew his mind was? Not a beautiful sunset, not a work of art. It was a boring office carpet. He was shouting, "Look at those shapes! Look at those colors!" Because he'd never seen anything before, this simple carpet was the most beautiful thing imaginable. This just goes to show you that happiness is driven by contrast, not by absolute value. This quote from Iris Murdoch makes the same point perfectly. We get so used to the wonderful things in our lives, our health, our relationships, the beauty of nature, that we just stop seeing them. We stop appreciating them. So when it comes right down to it, the real art of spending money isn't about buying more or better or fancier things. It's about mastering the art of contentment. It's about using money as a tool to gain your own independence and then spending your energy appreciating the life you already have. And that leaves us with this final, powerful question to think about. What's the ugly office carpet in your life that you've just stopped seeing? What simple, everyday source of joy and beauty have you become so used to that you've essentially become blind to it? Finding that's the real secret to a richer life.